Hello, and welcome to the archives. Today I'm going to be talking about the game because I realized that while I've done 2 episodes so far, just rambling about stuff that kind of interests me, I haven't actually explained what Netrunner is. So this is kind of a backdated episode. We'll just pretend that I did this first, okay? All right. Uh, So welcome to the archives. This is my show where I talk about Netrunner, Android Netrunner, which is a asymmetrical living card game. Now, asymmetrical living card game. These are terms that not everybody's going to know. Uh, Asymmetrical means that it is a two-player game, two players, and one player will be playing as the runner, and the other will be playing as the corp. Now, both sides have their own game. When you're playing as a runner, your game is going to be completely different than what the corporation would be playing. This is where the asymmetry comes in. Also, there is the fact that as the runner, all your cards are played face up. But the corporation, unless otherwise stated, all of their cards are played face down. So the corporation has more information available to them than the runner does. And this is where the asymmetry really comes into play. It's a very interesting system and a very interesting setup for the game. I quite enjoy it. Now, the living card game. Now, some of you are probably familiar with the term of collectible card game, where in those particular ones, a collectible card game, you go out, you buy randomized packs of cards. There's no guarantee as to what you're going to get. Other than you're going to get so many commons, so many uncommons, so many rares, and so on. Now, that is how a collectible card game works, because you're literally trying to collect all of the cards. But a living card game is different. A living card game is a game where you've got your core set that you buy. Then you've got data packs, which are kind of like booster packs in a way. And then there are expansions, which are bigger than a data pack, but smaller than the core set, I believe. At least I'm pretty sure it is. And you've got these expansions, you've got these data packs. Now, each expansion has its own name, and each data pack has its own name. There's usually 6 data packs in a cycle, as they call them. There are currently 3 cycles out now. They're working their way through the 4th cycle. Also, this is put up by Fantasy Flight Games, just in case anyone is wondering. So you can check their website out. I'll throw a link down in the description below. But, as I was saying, all these data packs and these expansion packs, they all have the same name. They all have the same cards in them. So that if you are playing with a friend and you are like, we're not going to use any cards from this particular expansion because I don't have it yet, even though your friend does, and your friend agrees, okay, we won't use any cards from this expansion, then you're both on the same sort of level playing field because you've both got access to whatever cards. It's all up to the individual players. Me, I don't mind. I'll play against anybody playing anything as long as it's legal. But this is what I mean by a living card game. There's no It's not like in a collectible card game where you have to spend loads and loads of money and always be buying booster pack after booster pack to try and get the cards you need. No, you can get every card that's out for Android Netrunner simply by buying what's been out already. There's no collectible aspect to it, and that I like. It makes it much more a game of skill with some luck thrown in because you've got to shuffle your deck and whatnot. So I really like that. Now, that being said, I'm going to be talking about how the runners work and how the corp works a little more in depth. So I'm going to briefly clear up this little table and we'll be back in just a minute. All right, and we're back with the runners. Now, this particular runner I have here is Raina Roja. She is an Anarch, and she has a minimum deck size, which you can't quite see, of 45. There we go. Minimum deck size of 45, and an influence of 15. Now, what that means is you need to have at least 45 cards in your deck. You can have more, but the minimum is 45. The influence rating of 15, there will be on certain cards, such as, for example, I'll show you this one, this particular one here, Xanadu. It's a little hard to see. We'll zoom right in here. Now you see those 5 little dots there? 2 of them are colored in. That means this particular card has a 2 influence. And you can only have up to 15 dots of influence in cards, and that's from ones that aren't your faction. Now this is an Anarch card because it has the same symbol and the same red color scheme. So for an Anarch, you don't worry about that cost. Now if I was running a Criminal or a Shaper deck, which are the other 2 factions of runners, Criminal cards tend to be blue and Shaper cards tend to be green. These simple color codings let you easily tell at a glance what card it is. There are also neutral cards, which are a gray color. But first off, the basic premise of the game is you have to try and steal, as the runner, 7 points worth of agendas from the Corp. And to do that, you need to be able to break through their ice that they're going to be putting up in front of their systems. In order to break through that ice, you need programs. And in order to pay for those programs, to not only install them, but pay to use them, you need these credits. You start out with 5 credits, same as the Corp. So in order to get into things, in order to actually get you money, you need resource cards. So resource cards, you'll get something like Sure Gamble. This is in the core set. Lets you spend 5 credits to gain 9. So if you've got that in your hand right off the bat, you can play that and bump that up 4 more credits and suddenly you have 9. This card goes away, of course. It's a one-use event item. Then there's also this one, which lets you spend nothing and gain 3 credits. It's also another event. Single-use cards. Then you've got other types. You've got other types like liberated accounts. Now this is a hefty cost. It costs 6 to put into play. But you put 16 credits on the card. You spend a click to take 4 off it. So this can play out over several turns, giving you 4 credits here, 4 credits there, as need be. This is one type of resource gathering. Then there's something like Underworld Contact. It only costs 2 to play, but as long as your link strength is 2, it gives you a credit every turn. And that's a nice little boost. 1 credit every turn. A lot of players don't really think that's a good thing, but 1 credit every turn, it adds up as time goes on. So you get resource cards, and you need to boost those up. There's also other things that you need to have. You need to have, of course, hardware. Having a console is always a good thing. This particular console works very well for Reina. It's her console. Gives you an additional 3 memory units. Now, every runner starts with 4 memory units in order to put their programs in. The programs that they'll be using, they have a memory unit cost. She has 4. You install this, she has 7. The MUs on this are only to be used with Kaisa. I believe I'm pronouncing that correct. Kaisa programs. Kaisa programs are Raina Roja's specialty. And also, whenever you install a Kaisa, once you have Deep Red installed, you can trigger its paid ability without actually spending the click to do it, which is very nice to have. So you install hardware, stuff like the console, like the Dyson Mem chip here, which gives you an extra memory unit and an extra link strength. So if you get one of these in play and you have Underworld Contacts installed, then you're getting a credit every turn. There's also the clone chip. The clone chip lets you install a program from your heap. You still have to pay the install cost, but it lets you reinstall something that's been trashed. Handy to have. Then there's also resources. Now this is a virtual resource, Xanadu. It increases the res cost of all ice by 1. And considering Reina Roja's special ability is to increase the res cost of the first piece of ice encountered by 1, that's an automatic 2. And there's other ways to increase that cost. Now, we'll just move these up here out of the way, along with these. Now, there's also programs. I mentioned programs. Now, programs are the way you beat ice. There's usually, in general, there's 3 types of ice. There are other types, subtypes, and special types that have come out in recent years, but the basic ones you want to look at, you've got a sentry, a barrier, and a code gate. So you're going to need a program or programs that will beat them. So you need a sentry breaker like Mimic, a barrier breaker like Corroder, or a code gate decoder like Yogg.0. You get these installed and you're pretty much golden, as long as they can handle things. Now, it all depends on what kind of play style you're going for. Yogg is really good. It'll just break any code gate for free. It costs 5 to install, but it costs nothing to use it. The only problem is it only has a strength of 3 and you can't raise it. Corroder is a nice little barrier breaker. Only costs 2 to install, only has a strength of 2, but it costs 1 credit to break a barrier and 1 credit to increase its strength by 1. So you can use that to bust through anything as long as you've got the credits. Mimic is another one. 3 to install it, strength of 3, 1 credit to break a sentry subroutine, but you can't raise its strength any. So if it's higher than 3, then you might be in trouble. Now that's where the rest of the programs that Reina has comes into play. Because there are other ones. Now for her, she's got Kaisa. She has the pawn, the rook, the knight, and the bishop. And these particular ones allow you to do all kinds of neat little things, which I quite enjoy. Pawn, basically, you host that on the outermost piece of ice, protecting a central server. Anytime you make a successful run, it moves to the next piece of ice in line. If it can't do that, you get to install a program from your heap or your hand, either your discard pile or your hand, ignoring all costs. This is a way to bring some of your other Kaisa ice back from the grave. Quite handy. Now you've got the ones that actually do meat and potatoes, so to speak. You got your knight. Your knight is an icebreaker, AI. It'll just break a subroutine on a host piece of ice. It will do anything. It'll tackle any type of ice as long as it's hosted on it. And you can spend a click to host that piece of ice, to host this program on a piece of ice. You've got your rook, which increases the res cost by 2 of all ice, protecting a single server. And then you've got the bishop, which lowers the strength of ice by 2. Using these 3 in conjunction with these and in conjunction with other things, you can really give the corp a bad day, especially since these ones can be moved. You can move them back and forth across the board. Unlike other programs, which are kind of either stuck on a particular piece of ice or just in your deck. There are other pieces of ice as well. There are, like this one, a virus, parasite. You host that on a piece of ice that's been rezzed, and every round you put a virus counter on it. For every virus counter, that ice has one less strength until it gets down to 0 or less, and then it's destroyed. Nice little piece of virusy programs to have. But this is basically what you have to do. You need to set yourself up with resources, set up your deck here with your console, your hardware, your programs. Get this all set up and make runs. You should always be making runs if you're a runner. Test that corp. Poke the bear, as it were. So, this is the basic, very basic. I am not particularly I'm not what you'd call a super player when it comes to Android Netrunner. I'm still learning all the ropes myself. But this is a very basic look at how the runners work. Now I'm going to talk about the core as soon as I clean this up. I'll be right back. And we're back with the corp. Now, this particular piece of corp identity, this is Next Design guarding the net. It has 45 minimum deck size and a 12 influence. Slightly different. This one also lets you immediately install 3 pieces of ice, no more than 1 per server, and then draw up to 5 cards before you make your turn. So this is a very ice-heavy deck that I have running here. Now, what do I have in it? Well, we'll get to the ice in a minute. First, like the runner, you've got 5 credits to start, and you need credits as the corp. You need so much credits as the corp. Usually. There are some corp decks that run on very little money, which is good. But generally speaking, as a corp, you're going to want to be over-prepared. So you need ways to make your money. And there are different ways of doing that. You can get cards like Melange Mining Corporation, which lets you waste your entire turn, all 3 clicks, but you gain 7 credits. Handy little thing to have. There's also Capital Investors, which lets you spend a click to gain 2 credits. Not bad. Once you've used it, it's already paid for itself, because it only costs 2 to install. Then you've got something like the Adonis campaign. As soon as you install and res this, you place 12 credits on it, and you take 3 credits from it when your turn begins. So it just gives you money for free for a number of turns until all the credits are run out. Then there's something like this. Now I've had great fun with this one. The Grendel Refinery. This is a Wayland card, so it cost me some influence to put it in my deck. But you just install it, advance it with advancement tokens, you put a credit on it, and when the time comes, you spend a click and trash it, you gain 4 credits for every advancement token on it. So you're getting basically 4 credits for spending 1, as long as the runner doesn't trash it first. Now it doesn't cost anything to res, which is good, and you can res at any time without having to spend a click, which is good. So if you think the runner's going to run on this and try and destroy you, get rid of all this money that you got, you can res that, spend a click, trash it, scoop the money off it. There's also assets, like this is an asset, as was the Adonis campaign. There's also something like this, Alex T4LB07. You basically install this, res it, and every time you install something, you place a power counter on it. A click and trash, and you gain 2 credits for every power counter on it. Now, these two here, Grendel Refinery and Alex, are kind of a long game in terms of gaining money. You want that out for a few rounds, earning you that money before you get rid of it. The more it earns, the more you get back. Now, there's other things as well, because like I said, when I was talking about the runner's goal is to gain 4 or gain 7 agenda points. Now, as the corporation, you have agendas. These are what they look like. The cost is up here in the corner, 433. Then there is numbers here, which are the agenda points, 2, 1, and 2. So this is 5 agenda points right here. But it's going to cost you as the corporation 10 in order to advance them and score them. And you still need 2 more points after this. So it takes some time. You need to be looking ahead at the long game. Now what you're going to do, you install your agendas in remote servers, face down, like so, for example. And then you put ice in front of it. Now, one of the first things you're going to want to do before you start throwing advancements out, or you could throw advancements out if you're that confident enough. But the first thing you want to be able to do is put down ice to guard your central server here, which is called HQ. Your deck will be placed here, and that will be called R&D. And then you've got your discard pile over here, which is called Archives, which is what this particular show is named after. You're going to want ice put down to guard all of those. And you're going to want ice put down to guard your, we'll just move that out of the way, to guard your agendas and your assets and everything else that you're doing. Now you've got ice in several different types. This is a trap ice, lab dog. Now what a trap ice is basically, to quote General Akbar, it's a trap. The runner is not going to have any way to stop this from happening. If they go to the point where you're rezzing it, they're already locked in. Boom, lab dog pops up. The runner trashes an installed piece of hardware. You get rid of it, but you've cost them something. There's also guard. Guard is a sentry. Guard cannot be bypassed. There are cards that let the runner bypass ice. This is handy to have. Just ends the run. Straight up ends the run. Then there's next silver. That is a barrier. And it gains end the run for each res piece of next ice. Now I have all the next ice in here. Then you've got Turing. Turing is a code gate. +3 strength while protecting a remote server. Having it over here, not good. You'd want it over here, protecting one of these, because then it gets boosted up to 5 strength. And the runner cannot use AI programs to break subroutines on Turing. And it basically ends the run unless the runner spends 3 clicks. Since the runner only gets 4 per turn, that's a lot. Then you've got Quicksand. Quicksand's a barrier. Place a power counter on it whenever the runner encounters it. And it gains +1 strength for every power counter on it. The more they're running into that, the stronger that ice is going to be. Then you've got stuff like Next Bronze, which is a code gate. It gains +1 strength. Only has 1 end the run on it. But for every piece of next ice, it goes up a strength. Then you've got Next Gold. X is the number of res next ice. You do that amount of net damage, and you trash that many programs of the runners. And that is a sentry. So you got your sentry, you got your code gate, you got your barriers. And you want to have a good mix of them. There's also other ice you can have that aren't really set up the same as these ones that have come out. Like I said, the trap ice is a bit of a different subtype of ice. Then you have something like Excalibur. Now Excalibur is a mythic grail ice. That's all it says for the type. So it's not code gate, it's not sentry, it's not a barrier, unless the runner has something which is specifically targeting this ice, like a Kaiser program that targets a host ice, they cannot get past this. And this just stops the runner from making another run this turn. So if they run into that, that can be... I have one of these in my Jinteki deck. And because they have to run on a central server, I like throwing this up for a central server, making them run into it and be like, oh, you can't run anymore. Too bad, so sad. So you want to get your resources out. You need to be making that money. You need to get your ice out. You need to build your fortress and protect this particular thing that you've got going. And then once you've got your protection up, you need to start spending credits and advancing your agendas. Now, there are cards that can be advanced that aren't agendas. I've got several in my Jinteki deck that let me advance trap cards. But pretty much it's going to be something that the runner's going to want. So you have to be very careful how you do things. Research Grant is lovely to have for a Hospiroid deck, because if you can get more than one copy of it installed, and you can advance and score this, which is only 3, you can do that in a turn. When you score Research Grant, you score another copy of it that's installed. So if you've got all 3 copies of your Research Grant installed and you score one of them, it's only worth 1 point, but you've just scored all 3 of them at the same time. 2 of them for free. So you're up 3 points. Nice to have. Corporate War. Haven't really tried this one yet. Haven't been able to get it out. But if you've got at least 7 credits when you score it, you gain 7 credits. Otherwise, you lose all credits in your credit pool. So it's a little tricky to have. You need to have a lot of money in order to score this one, because it costs 4, and you need to have 7 in it. At least 7 in your pool when you score it. So it's interesting. There's lots of fun little ways and fun little setups you can do. But that's basically your corp. Oh, and before I forget, I almost forgot to talk about upgrades. Yes, upgrades. Let me have a quick look here. Yes. Right here. We'll throw guard here. And we'll say this one was installed. And you've got the underway grid installed as an upgrade. Now this is a region upgrade. Usually a limit of 1 region per server. Now this is a server. And what it does is ice protecting this server cannot be bypassed. Cards in and protecting the server cannot be exposed. So if you get this thing and you res it, the runner can't use a card ability or a special ability to look at what that card is. So they won't know. And because guard cannot be bypassed, and the ice protecting it cannot be bypassed, you can throw guard here, throw next, and next in front of it. None of those can be bypassed. And unless the runner has specific programs to deal with it, they're just going to run right into it and get tore up, and then end the run. So it's always nice to be able to plan your stuff out. That's the one thing as a corp that you need to keep in mind. You always need to be looking at the long game. Either that or just be ready to just destroy the runner. Just kill him outright. So it's up to you how you want to play the game. But I've been talking for quite a long time now, so I'm going to call this to a close. And until next time, keep running.